Well, hello everybody. Good evening. Welcome to Review and Preview. I'm your host Tom Scavetta, joined alongside Kyle Russo, James Montefusco. Fellas, it is a winter wonderland up here in the Northeast New York City metropolitan Long Island area. Hope you're both staying safe out there, and thank you for joining me tonight.
Absolutely, Tom. Happy to be here. Looking forward to it.
James, I see you're representing LIU, so congratulations on that nice little sweatshirt you got there, representing the colors outside on the street. Now, I got to tell you, folks, you're in store for a great treat tonight. We're going to feature our quarterback carousel segment, so we're going to be going through nearly half the league and predicting where a lot of these quarterbacks might be landing and ending up. But before we get there, make sure to give us a follow on Facebook and all our social media platforms, as you can see, scrolling underneath us on our ticker, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Review and Preview Sports for all exclusive content, NFL-based content, NBA stuff, baseball, hockey, you name it, we got it for you. So make sure to go check us out and smash the like button and subscribe. So one other thing I do want to plug is that we are having a Super Bowl pregame special on Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern time. Just want to show everybody there. There is our graphic, so make sure to join us for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. It'll be the three of us, Gabe Flayton and Paul Lombardi on the show, so that should be excellent. Definitely looking forward to having you guys. We've never done a show on a Sunday.
No. This will be the first ever Super Bowl show, too, so it'll be fun.
Yeah, get your morning coffee, folks. Join us.
Yeah, 10 a.m. Eastern. So make sure to catch us then. It'll be a lot of fun. And yes, we're going to go over our quarterback carousel segment tonight. Talk about the NFL head coaching updates. Obviously, Dave Culley getting hired. Talk about the Brooklyn Nets, the Knicks, the Rangers, Islanders, and then the New York Mets. But first off, I just want to say what a trade on Saturday night. Guys, I was driving home from Rockland County, and a notification popped up on my phone as I was driving home. I had the GPS in, and I thought it said the Bears on there, but then I called Kyle because I knew, James, you were working at Tillis, so I called Kyle, and Kyle's like, yeah, Matthew Stafford just got traded to the LA Rams, and Jared Goff went to Detroit. How insane is that? Matthew Stafford is a Los Angeles Ram. I'm still trying to process that. He's been a Lion since 2009. It's been over a decade. 32-year-old quarterback changing teams.
Yeah, no, it's a great trade for him, and I think it's a great trade for Detroit as well, because not only do they get a starter now in Jared Goff, who has accomplished some things in this league. He's been to a Super Bowl. We'll see what he's capable of doing under Dan Campbell and a new head coaching staff as well. But now they also got a boatload of picks, because in that Rams trade, they basically had to say, okay, Detroit, eat the cap of Jared Goff, and then we're going to give you 2 more first-round picks. And I think that's why the trade went down, because Matt Stafford, originally, people were saying it only required maybe 1 high first-round pick. The Rams basically had to buy Detroit into paying for Jared Goff in that trade. But Matthew Stafford, man, on that team, I think we go back to that Super Bowl. I think Jared Goff was that X factor and didn't pull through. But now with Matthew Stafford, I said it last week, I think, Matthew Stafford, I think, is one of the most underrated players in football because of the team that he's on, because they don't give him a plethora of array of weapons. But now he's in LA now with the number 1 defense in football. Sean McVay is an offensive genius. Look out for the Rams next season.
James, what do you think of this trade?
This trade just caught me by surprise. I mean, I was not expecting this to happen. I thought Jared Goff was their franchise quarterback. The Rams were going to ride into his late years. To see this being changed, I mean, right before our carousel, right before we hopped on the carousel, which I was like, oh, man, this is going to wait to after, just to kind of see where we thought them two would have winded up. I think it's great in a way for for Stafford, only because he gets to play with actual weapons. He gets to play with a head coach that loves his team. He gets to play with a phenomenal defense. We saw what the Rams did this year. I expect them to go even further next year or this upcoming season. Jared Goff, well, I'm sorry, but your time in sunny LA, California, wherever he lived on the West Coast, is now looking doom and gloom, in not so pretty, not so warm weather.
I'm going to take a little different approach. I think the Lions won this trade. In 3 years from now, we'll be looking at, I mean, look, you have a new head coach, and obviously Matthew Stafford did not want to be there. And it is a little concerning with Golladay and Jones both being free agents in the offseason, but you have a tight end in TJ Hawkinson. We know Jared Goff loves to throw to the tight end. And, you have to prioritize re-signing Kenny Golladay. If they're able to do that, then at least the offense is somewhat respectable. I think this trade definitely in the short term benefits the Rams. So as far as like a year or two from now, I'd say the Rams definitely have the advantage because Matthew Stafford is definitely an upgrade over Goff. He's proven that, he could lead the league in passing. He could throw 40 touchdowns a year. That's not the question. It's been what's been around him and what's been in front of him with that offensive line. I think, this trade, it was weird because he came out and said that, the Colts would be a potential destination. And he stated he ruled out the New England Patriots. That was the only team he ruled out. It's the only team he told Detroit, hey, don't trade me here. But he got traded to the Rams. It's a huge win for the Rams right now. I think if Detroit is able to put things together collectively, they have a shot at, in a few years down, because Goff is a young quarterback. It's not like it was an excellent return for Matthew Stafford is what I'm trying to say, guys. So maybe the Lions didn't win the trade because, again, you don't know what they're going to do with those draft picks, but it's definitely an excellent return for Detroit.
Yep, I think it was the best return possible, and I think that's why they wound up trading him to the Rams. I don't think any other team would have been willing to give them, a starting franchise quarterback and 2 first-round picks.
Yeah, no, and it's crazy. 2 first-round picks, and only if Deshaun Watson gets traded, imagine how many first-rounders that's going to take if Stafford got 2. But I do want to say, folks, if you're watching our live stream right now, make sure to share, like, comment, share this podcast with your friends and family. Really appreciate it. We're going to be going over our quarterback carousel. And without further ado, why don't we get started? Before we move any further, let's start with the obvious one. Do we all agree Dak Prescott will be returning to the Cowboys in 2021? Is there any argument against that?
No.
The only argument is I don't think he deserves all the money, but
yeah, I think now more than ever, Jerry Jones will finally pull the trigger on it, especially after having the injury. He'll definitely sign him back.
I agree. I think he's staying in Dallas. I think they're going to overpay to keep him. But as far as crippling them and their other needs, they have so many needs on defense and offensive line. After all, the guys got hurt last year. You don't know how they're going to be coming off of injury.
Yep.
So I think Dak does stay in Dallas. I think that's a lock. Andy, what's up? Andy Hopper saying hello all the way from Champaign, Illinois. Andy, looking forward to joining your Super Bowl pregame show Saturday night on the Brew Party. That's going to be a lot of fun. Make sure to go check out the Brew Party and all their content.
And then he asks me, why doesn't he deserve the money? I could tell you why. I'm a Giants fan. I mean, there's a lot of things that I'm not going to say because we're live right now, but I'm a Giants fan. The only reason, if Dak wasn't hurt, Little Sunday, if Dak wasn't hurt, Dallas would have won the division. By Jerry Jones paying him whatever pretty much both parties agree on, you might see Dallas win the division next year and possibly the year after that, depending on what the Giants do and Washington. But that's it. So let's go back to our quarterback carousel, boys.
It's definitely an interesting way to put it. And the team I want to start with now that we got Dallas out of the way is the Indianapolis Colts, because they're a team that was the most likely fit for Matthew Stafford on paper, but they were unable to acquire him. Obviously, their quarterback, Phillip Rivers, did retire a couple of weeks ago now after their playoff loss to the Buffalo Bills, and Jacoby Brissett is bound to be a free agent. They already used him 1 year as a bridge quarterback between Luck and Rivers. Now they're in a situation where the only quarterback on their roster is second-year 2B man and Jacob Eason. So who do we think ends up in Indianapolis in the offseason? Kyle, I'll start with you.
I think it's going to be Carson Wentz. Even rumored today, after a new head coach, Carson Wentz is rumored to still not be happy with the Eagles organization. So that only further proves that maybe it ran deeper than the hate relationship that he had with Doug Peterson. I don't know if you could mend that personally. And I know that Carson Wentz, the biggest success that he ever had was under Frank Reich. And that's probably one of the only teams in the NFL that has the cap space to absorb a contract like that, like the Eagles gave him. I think that he'd want to play for Frank Reich. I think that the Eagles would want to get something back in return. And I think that'd be one of the only teams in the NFL that would be willing to do so based on their salary and payroll right now. So I think that Carson Wentz winds up in Indianapolis.
Not to mention they have the third most salary cap. They have the third highest, so that's excellent. Only behind, I think, the Jets and the Dolphins, I want to say. So they're up there.
Yeah.
James, where do you have better say where do you have Carson? Who do you have the Colts as the Colts quarterback in 2021?
Where the Colts quarterback in 2021 is Andy Dalton.
That's a nice take. I actually like that.
He proved himself in a Cowboys jersey. He actually played pretty well. Surprised me, probably surprised a lot of other people. I don't see Brissett starting in the Colts, considering they used him as a carryover and they ain't like what they saw. So I would say Andy Dalton goes to Indianapolis.
I actually love that. You give him receivers, a running back, and a great offensive line, something we never had in Cincinnati.
Kind of like what he leaving Dallas, maybe a little bit of an upgrade on that offensive line.
Yeah. I actually love it. It's a nice one.
That is a nice pick, James. I was definitely considering Andy Dalton, but I think it's going to be a competition for Indy. Now, yes, they do have the third most cap space, so they can go ahead and say, hey, Carson, we want you. We know you have ties to Frank Reich from your Philadelphia days. However, I think it's going to be a competition between Jacob Eason and a rookie. I don't think they're in a big – I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of movement is what I'm saying. I don't think Carson is going there. I think they might try to draft Kyle Trask out of Florida, or they may potentially trade up. So as of right now, I'm going to go ahead and say that, out of who's on their roster right now, it's going to be Eason. But if they draft Kyle Trask, I think it's going to be him. So I'm going to go way out of left field here and say Kyle Trask will most likely be the Colts starting quarterback in 2021. There have been rumors about that, by the way. Just wanted to say.
Good take.
We all have three different picks. I like it.
Yeah.
What do you say? We do the Jets next?
Sure.
Yeah.
So the Jets just hired Robert Saleh, right? And now they're in a situation where they've been rumored to trade for Deshaun Watson. They've been rumored that they may keep Sam Darnold or maybe draft the quarterback at number 2 overall. James, where do you think the Jets go with this here? They have a lot of options.
Well, since they have a whole bunch of cap space, they got a new coach that I don't know if anybody saw, at least us New Yorkers saw probably his press conference about firing up his team, firing up his fan base. I think the Jets honestly are going to go after Watson. They got the most cap space. They got a second-round pick this season. I don't know what they have the next seasons. I think they go all out and get Watson. And Darnold is shipped somewhere else.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Kyle, who do you got?
I'm sticking with Sam. I think this is going to be, a prove-it year because now I think he's got a great head coach. He's all about passion. He's all about getting the best out of his players. And we saw what he did last year with the 49ers and the year before that. I also think Mike LaFleur as the offensive coordinator is so underrated. And I think that's going to help Sam tremendously. And depending what they do with that second overall pick, they also got the 23rd as well. They could upgrade the offense. I think they have like 12 picks this year as well. They got a lot of cap. They could turn it around really quickly. And I think that they're going to choose Sam to be the guy.
I agree. I think it's going to be Darnold. Remember, he's coming up on a contract year. And I think if you're the Jets, you want to give him weapons offensively. You saw some chemistry with Denzel Mims and Chris Herndon last year. So I think you want to bring in another weapon for Sam Darnold to team up with try to elevate his play in year number 4. So I think that's where I think Darnold's going to end up. Although one team I wouldn't be surprised with is Washington. I think the Colts and Washington could be two potential suitors for Mr. Darnold, but I think he's staying in green for at least one more year.
Yeah.
So, all right, not a bad start. Let's get into this is the big one. We might be on this one for a while. The Houston Texans fired their GM and head coach Bill O'Brien. They just hired new GM and Nick Caserio, and it's rumored that Deshaun Watson wants off the team. J.J. Watt wants off the team. They're not headed in the right direction. Kyle, why don't you take the reins here? And before I get there, it's been rumored that if the Texans were to trade Deshaun Watson, they would want 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and 2 defensive starters. That's a lot.
So my hot take of the evening to start us off, guys, is I think that the Texans quarterback starting the new year 2021 will be Jimmy Garoppolo. I think Jimmy Garoppolo and what that essentially means, and I can I say what that essentially means? And no, we'll wait a little bit till we say who the 49ers quarterback will be in my case.
You could say whatever you want.
All right.
Totally fun.
What that would essentially mean is that Deshaun Watson would be traded to the 49ers. He's, playing in a hot area once again, playing for Kyle Shanahan, another fantastic young offensive mind. John Lynch, I think, is one of the best executives or GMs in football right now, so I think he's definitely capable of getting it done. Defense we saw last season, even with the amount of injuries that they had, was not a problem. The offensive line is decent. They got a whole array of great running backs on that roster. Young up-and-coming receivers, Brandon Ayuk. I like what I saw from last season. George Kittle coming back healthy. I mean, that's a Super Bowl contender. And then the Texans, why they would do this, again, like I said earlier, the 49ers have a lot to give up, essentially, in terms of defensive players that they could pick from their roster to give to the Texans, as well as I think the biggest gleam of light with this trade is, again, the Texans over the course of the last month have deemed themselves as such a disastrous organization that they're going to have to trade for a guy that's already locked up. So I think that Jimmy Garoppolo, having another 2-3 years left on his contract, I don't believe he has a no-trade clause. It's going to be a guy that essentially will have to pay for him because he's under contract. Whereas, if they trade him to another team, I don't really see how the Texans replace a quarterback unless they draft one. And knowing that they don't have a first-round pick this year, I don't think that's going to be a possibility. So I think that's the way that they go, and I think this trade happens.
I kind of like that, actually. I know Frisco has been rumored to be a potential suitor for Deshaun Watson, but James, I want to hear what you got too. That's definitely a good one, Kyle. I heard Michael Vick was kind of involved with that as well. So
yeah, that's interesting. So I'm going to go probably out in left field, like what the Texans have done this season. Tyrod Taylor.
That's also a great choice because they may not have a lot of options after this season and what went down.
Give him a small contract, can build a team. I mean, I don't know. Listen, the Texans organization is probably worse than the Jets organization right now, in my opinion. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do Tyrod Taylor.
That's something else. Yeah, no, I mean, I could definitely see that happening for sure. Guys, I think Watson's staying. And my reasoning why is I totally understand that he wants out of Houston. And don't get me wrong, I do think that, a team like Carolina could be a potential suitor for him. If he does get traded, that's where I think he'll go, by the way. I think he'll go to Carolina with Joe Brady and Matt Rule down there. I think that would make the most sense. But Houston just paid Watson $30 million this past year. In my opinion, it's a bad business move to trade him. And I know it happened with the Giants and Odell. They traded him after they paid him. But I think a trade to the Panthers would be the only place that he possibly goes. But have him staying in Houston. I think this is going to last past. I mean, you could see a potential draft night trade. But, Chris Sims reported it today. There's a good chance Watson is going to sit out training camp and may sit out 2021 if he still is a Texan. And I don't know. I mean, Caserio, they seem like they don't want to trade him. They don't want to trade him. But at the same time, if you don't like where you're working, what happens? You ask to be, and the NFL is different because you're under a contract. And look, I'd like to think he's going to get traded, but something tells me he's not. I think this Houston fiasco is going to last a little longer.
I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I don't know if he'd sit out a seat. I don't see him as that type of player. I don't think he'd do that. I don't know how that would work salary wise. Would they still be obligated to pay him if he sits out?
I believe. I'm not sure. I mean, I would imagine because, I mean, here's the thing. I think Watson should give Caserio a chance to build this team in the offseason. And then, if you don't like how things are looking after free agency, then the trade stock may buzz a little bit. Then maybe that'll get me to change my mind. But until you've seen a full offseason from this GM, I mean, I think he should stay. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the head coach hiring, which we'll get into later, but I think he's staying. I'm not confident in that, but I think he's going to stay. It's just one of those things, guys. The carousel stopped spinning rather quickly for me after the Stafford-Goff trade, so we may see some boring stuff for me here tonight. But anyway, let's get to Miami. Let's get to they're a team that could potentially trade for Watson as well. They've been rumored as one of the top 4 suitors, but they did just draft Tua last year. So, James, you'll start this one. Who do you think is starting for Miami in 2021?
I say they go back to the same formula they just had. Tua, and they'll re-sign. I think Fitzpatrick is a free agent, so they'll bring him back as the backup. But I see Tua starting.
Okay.
Yeah, I see Tua as well. The only reason, and I don't think a lot of people know this, the only reason why I don't see Deshaun Watson going there is because if you're the Houston Texans, the most embarrassing thing that you could do for your franchise at this point is trade for the pick that you traded to Miami. So I just don't see that happening, but I see them sticking with Tua and probably signing back Fitzpatrick as well.
I agree. That's the next thing I was going to bring up. If you're Miami, you don't want to trade. If you're Miami and Houston, you don't want to re-swap. It just doesn't make sense. It's kind of not a good look for both franchises, as a matter, especially Houston. But I think Miami's sticking with Tua. I mean, he looked decent at times in his rookie year. Remember, he had a significant injury at Alabama that affected him. He wasn't able to start right away, and when he did, he gave the team a nice boost. And look what Miami did this year. It's not like you can say Tua lost Miami a lot of games. That wasn't the case.
No,
it really wasn't. He wasn't the problem this year for Miami. The problem with Miami was Buffalo was just a lot better.
Yeah,
Miami.
They won 10 games. It was just that Buffalo's in the same division.
So we all have Tua staying. So that's the first one that we all have the same so far. And let's get to Chicago, a team that, and Andy Hopper, I hope you're watching right now because things are about to get a little crazy here. The Chicago Bears are a team that actually made the playoffs at 8-8. It was so crazy. Their game was televised on Nickelodeon. Mitch Trubisky was named the Nickelodeon Valuable Player, and he is set to be a free agent heading into 2021. There's been rumors about him potentially to Denver, to Washington, even to Houston. And, they said it would have to take a deep playoff run for the Bears to keep Trubisky. So what do you guys think?
I think that the Bears wind up signing Cam Newton. I see the organization in the Bears having a carousel within themselves, trading for Nick Foles in the offseason, even though they had Trubisky, benching Trubisky, even though he started 3-0 or 2-1 or something like that, and they put in Nick Foles. Nick Foles couldn't win a game, went back to Trubisky, made the playoffs, and they still don't seem to want him back. But Cam Newton was a guy that the Bears were rumored to be interested in last offseason as well, except the GM just wound up pulling the trigger with Jacksonville and acquiring Nick Foles. Cam Newton's going to be out there. I don't think there's going to be a lot of interest in him. And I don't know if there's going to be a lot of interest in this Bears team as well, just because of, potentially losing Allen Robinson. Jimmy Graham is an older player. What is Tariq Cohen going to be? They got a lot of question marks with that team. Is Matt Nagy even going to be there for a whole nother? We might be here this year, but he's going to be there another year. I think Cam Newton is the guy they wind up signing because he's going to be out there.
That's an interesting one.
Yep.
Interesting. I'm sticking with Trubisky. He got him to the playoffs. Andy, if you're watching, either you agree, disagree. I'd actually love to know what you're thinking on this. So comment below. But yeah, I think they stick with Trubisky. They ain't go deep. I mean, you look at it, they ain't go deep. Well, they played the Saints. So maybe if they played a weaker team like Washington, they might have went deeper. But they did play the Saints. I say they stick with Trubisky. Kyle does make some good points. They don't want to stick with Foles or Trubisky as we saw throughout the season, so it should be interesting. But I say Trubisky stays.
So I have Trubisky as well, staying with the Bears, and for a different reason than James, though. Trubisky actually has had a better record with Chicago than Watson has with the Texans, and that's more of a product of the team that the Bears have had the last few years and the coaching. I think Nagy is a slightly better coach than O'Brien was, and I also think the Bears' defense was much better than Houston was. But Trubisky was the quarterback of a 12-4 Bears team in 2018, and the Bears are lurking around 8 to 9 wins every single year. Now, what does that mean? That means you're never picking high enough in the draft to get one of these rookie quarterbacks. And I don't think the Bears can bank on that. I don't. I think the Bears are keeping Mitch Trubisky. It may not be what you would like to hear, Bears fans, but I think they're going to keep him on a 1-year deal, a prove-it deal. There's a chance they could even use they could pull out the franchise tag. I don't think they're going to do that. That wouldn't make sense to me. But I think they're going to sign him to a 1-year, not minimal deal, but a moderate deal to keep him. Trubisky, in my opinion, was not the reason why the Bears faltered this year. The Bears they didn't have a good offensive line, and I feel like they should have never benched Mitch Trubisky. What can Nick Foles do that Mitch Trubisky can't at this point? Mitch Trubisky is 26 years old. Foles is on the north side of 30. Yeah. I think the whole Nick Foles thing was dumb. I think it played with Trubisky's head a little bit. I think it would have been smarter to bring in a veteran quarterback like an Andy Dalton to work with Mitch Trubisky when they had the opportunity to. I think Trubisky's staying, although I wouldn't be surprised if he goes elsewhere. But I have Mitch staying in Chicago for at least 1 more year. And on to New England. New England's interesting. Obviously, Tom Brady left the organization last year, signed with the Tampa Bay Bucks in free agency. And you know what? I'll go first here for this one because the Patriots, in my opinion, are going to draft Mac Jones. Quarterback out of Alabama. He had an impressive Senior Bowl. The Patriots are picking 15th. I think this is an excellent spot for New England to draft him. I know Belichick has never drafted a quarterback first round. He's never really drafted a big-name quarterback other than Tom Brady. So, I mean, you can make the argument Jimmy G. But, look, I think Mac Jones fits what they want better than Cam Newton. There's a chance they could bring Cam Newton back. Devin McCourty came out and said he would not mind Cam Newton returning to New England, but taking away his 12 rushing touchdowns. New England quarterbacks last year had 12 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. That will change if Mac Jones is your quarterback heading into 2021. And, I'm kind of looking at their cap space here. They're not necessarily in the best shape. They're not in the worst shape. Actually, no, they're in pretty good shape. They're fourth. So they could go out and be spenders, but I think it's smarter for them to go with the young quarterback in Mac Jones.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I actually have them taking Mac Jones as well with the 15th overall pick. I think it's a great fit for them. I think that, again, even though New England, it seems like they were way worse of a team than they actually were, they went 7-9 last year, so they almost hit 500. And you got to remember, with the amount of guys that they had that opted out, which I think was 8, they lost a lot of guys to free agency. A lot of guys periodically throughout the year got COVID. You remember Cam Newton got COVID, and after that, he really was never the same.
Yeah.
Julian Edelman was hurt all year as well. And they were rolling with receivers like Jacoby Myers and, a bunch of other guys. But
Harry.
Yeah, Harry as well. Well, Harry they mixed in, but yeah, they really struggled. I think that they start off with a quarterback and then they, build through free agency. Again, the defense I think is going to be much better next year than it was this year. And I think they somewhat get back on track with Mac Jones leading the charge.
James.
Well, this might surprise a few people. Jimmy G goes back to the Pats.
Like it.
Bill Belichick's like, nope, Cam Newton was a terrible idea, disgusting, doesn't work in my system. Jimmy G, I know that he's been under Brady. He knows my system. Since they're fourth, I'm sure they do some Belichick things to get him back. He comes back as a Patriot.
I like that a lot, actually. I think Jimmy G has been rumored to potentially go back there if the 49ers are able to pull the plug with a quarterback like a Deshaun Watson or a Matt Ryan. Yeah. But I think Jimmy G is a good pick if you're not going rookie. If you're going veteran, I think Jimmy G is the best fit, actually. One could argue Matt Ryan as well, veteran from Atlanta, although I think he's – we'll get to Atlanta in just a moment.
Yeah.
But, I think Ryan being from Pennsylvania, playing his college ball at Boston College, that would be a decent fit. But all right, let's move on to Washington. The Washington football team. Kyle, I would like you to go first for the Washington football team.
I'm going to have them take a quarterback in this year's draft. I believe they have the 19th overall pick, I want to say. Something like that. I'm going to say that they take Kyle Trask out of Florida. I think that'll be their quarterback. I was also really close to seeing a Cam Newton reunion with Ron Rivera, but I felt that I don't know if he's going to do that. But just based on the fact that Ron Rivera has brought essentially every Carolina quarterback he's ever had, Taylor Heineke, Kyle Allen, why not bring over Cam Newton, the best one you ever had? But I'm going to roll with Kyle Trask. I think they pick a new guy. Kyle Allen's not going to be the guy. Dwayne Haskins, you saw they released. I think Alex Smith is going to retire. And Taylor Heineke, as much as we loved him in that Tampa game, I don't think that could be your franchise quarterback. So I think they take a quarterback at the first round this year, and I think it's going to be Kyle Trask.
James.
Alrighty. Well, in my mind, it depends on what Alex Smith does. He retires, they find somebody else. If he doesn't retire and he stays with Washington, they don't go after anybody. But I did worst case scenario. They get Cam Newton.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my pick, Cam Newton. Other factors lead it into that, but my gut was telling me Newton.
So here's my problem with Cam Newton for Washington. And yes, I flirted with this idea as well. The GM. It's the same GM that had beef with Cam Newton in Carolina. I don't think they're going to do it. I wouldn't be surprised if they did, but I don't think Newton will be a starter there. I think at this point, Cam Newton might be a backup quarterback, guys.
I see that.
It all depends on the scheme. I don't know if there's many teams left that would fit his scheme. Washington is one of them. If Alex Smith retires, which I think he should, they will draft Kyle Trask. Regardless if Smith retires or not, I think they should draft Kyle Trask. But I do think Cam Newton is a potential backup quarterback option. So I do agree with Kyle. I have Trask going to the Washington football team. And we actually get to this. Hey, Sam, what's up? How's it going? Thanks for tuning in to the live stream tonight. What's up, boys? I don't see Alex Smith sticking around much longer. I'd love to see Cam finish off his career with Ron Riverboat Rivera. But what about Taylor Heineke?
Nah, Taylor Heineke, as much as we loved it, I just don't see it. I would be shocked if they roll with Taylor Heineke into the new season. He did prove himself, though, up against the best.
I think if they need to put him in and see how he plays, he might be somebody that they put out like for trading. If they need pieces and he's playing pretty well, see who is willing to take him for some trades. But
I think Heineke earned himself the number 2 quarterback role for Washington in 2021.
Yeah.
That's my opinion on that. But don't get me wrong. You bring in Trask, you got to give Heineke an open competition. You got to give him a chance to compete for the starting job against Trask if those are the 2 quarterbacks that they put out. But Sam brings up a good point. I don't see Smith lasting much longer, and it would be nice to see Cam be back with Rivera in Washington. And it's crazy. Heineke actually started a game for Carolina as well before coming over to Washington. And then Andy Hopper has a comment. He says Mitch to the football team.
It's gonna Andy, you don't want him on the Bears anymore?
No, I think Andy's over Mitch. Andy's seen 4 years of Mitch.
Andy, who do you want as your next quarterback? Put it in.
Yeah.
Who do you want as your next quarterback?
So we actually just talked about the Bears, Andy, in case you missed it. So Kyle has the Bears getting Cam Newton via free agency. And James and I both think Trubisky will stay due to where the Bears are in the draft and their cap positioning. I don't think they'll be able to trade for anybody. And, other than those 2, I think Andy Dalton is the third guy maybe you throw in there.
He comments, wouldn't mind him on a 1-year back to Chicago. And then he comes back with draft a young guy, let him compete.
Here's the problem with that. We have Mac Jones going to New England, and we have Kyle Trask going to Washington.
Yeah.
Bears come after Washington in this draft. Unless one of those 2 teams does not take – I think Mac Jones would be an excellent fit for Chicago, by the way.
And then Sam comes back with –
Nick Foles. They're going to have to buy him out, Sam, because he's got way too much money left on that contract. Actually, wait a minute. Didn't he? He only signed a 3-year deal with Jacksonville, so I think he only might have 1 year left on that deal.
Yeah, let's check his contract situation right now, because that's.
I'm pretty sure it was a 3-year deal with Jacksonville, so he might ride out the rest of his career as the backup for Chicago potentially.
Yep. So Foles has a potential opt-out after 2021, but he'll be an unrestricted free agent in 2023.
Okay, so 4 years. Yeah.
Yes.
So he'll opt into that.
Speaking of which, Sam and Andy, I'm excited to join them Saturday night on the Brew Party for Andy's Super Bowl pregame show. Really looking forward to that. Make sure to tune into ours as well on Sunday at 10 a.m. That's going to be a lot of fun. So it's going to be a busy weekend for review and preview and the Brew Party. So, it's interesting. A lot of things can happen with Washington. A lot of things can happen.
Yep.
Maybe they'll get a name.
What was that?
Maybe they'll even get a name this year,
Not
Who knows?
Not yet. 2022.
All right.
So, Jacksonville. I think this one's pretty obvious. Do we all have Jacksonville drafting Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Cool. So that's a clean sweep. Put T-Law here for all of us. My chicken scratch. Okay, so Jacksonville is moved on from, I think, Urban Meyer. Trevor Lawrence is a good fit.
Yep.
Carolina. Now, Carolina is the one team that I could see potentially getting Watson. Because I was not impressed with Teddy Bridgewater this year. He was okay, but he wasn't great either. Kyle, who do you have landing in the Carolinas?
I think they draft the quarterback, and I think they take Zach Wilson out of BYU. I think that he will be there at the 8th overall pick. I think Teddy will still be on the roster, and he might start a couple games off in the regular season, but once they transition Zach Wilson into that position, I think that'll be their guy moving forward. Again, I don't remember if Matt Rule was there when they first originally acquired Teddy Bridgewater, so that may not have been his original move or mindset. But I think that, Teddy Bridgewater having 1 year remaining left on his deal, I think that they could assume that he's not going to be the guy. So I think Matt Rule is going to want to draft his own guy, and I think that Zach Wilson being there at number 8 is a great pickup for them potentially.
James, who do you got? Tell me.
They're sticking with Bridgewater. They're going to ride him out. Even though he didn't look good, I think they're just going to ride him out, see what it holds. I mean, they could probably might go. I don't know exactly what their cap space looks like, but they could go after somebody on Washington's bench.
So, Kyle, I just want to clarify. You have them drafting Zach Wilson and Bridgewater being moved?
No, I think Bridgewater stays with the team, but I think that Zach Wilson will be drafted to Carolina to eventually be the starter.
Because I just want to because I actually have the Panthers drafting Zach Wilson as well.
Yeah,
but I think Bridgewater's going to start the season. I don't think Wilson's going to play right away.
I'll agree with that. I agree with that. Like I said, I think that Teddy Bridgewater gets like 4 or 5 games, and then they transition to Zach Wilson potentially.
Okay, so do you want to stick with Wilson or?
Yeah, just put me down for Wilson.
Right.
That's who I think they're going to draft.
Okay, so I'm just going to go Teddy. Okay, all right. But I do think they will be drafting Wilson. That was an interesting one. But Carolina's out of the way. The New Orleans Saints, they have the worst cap situation in football. They have the least amount of space. They are 32nd. They're actually worse than the Philadelphia Eagles, which is bad. Drew Brees is more than likely going to retire any minute now. And, James, I want to start with you here.
So, since I honestly thought the Eagles were bad, I thought the Eagles were 32nd in the league in cap space, just finding that out. But it's not going to change my decision that I have down on paper. It's going to be a split between Jameson, Winston, and Hill. That combo worked out. Hill and Breeze worked out pretty well during this past season. I think they stick with that same thing. I mean, they got pretty much no money to spend. Drew Brees isn't coming back. So they're going to ride with Winston and Hill and call it a day.
Can you pick one?
Oh, okay. Winston.
Okay. And just so you know, Winston is a free agent, so they have to bring him back for that to happen. Kyle, who do you got?
Yeah, I'm going with Winston too. But he's not going to cost any money. He threw what? How many passes this year? And
3.
Only 1 touchdown, and that was in the playoffs. So he's not going to really have a big market. The Saints have said that they want him back, so I don't see him moving on, especially knowing that he's an opportunity to be a starter. I don't think he has an opportunity to be a starter on a lot of these teams in the NFL.
It's Taysom Hill for me, guys. I think he's the older of the two. I don't like Winston and his turnovers. I think maybe they give him a look, but I'm going to be bold and see Taysom Hill will be starting in 2021.
Now, Tom, I got a question for you before we move on to the next one. Do you see Hill as more of a Lamar Jackson type, just because he does so much? Like, does that interfere with, say, 2 to 3 years down the road if Hill does become their starting quarterback this season?
I think the thing is with Taysom Hill's game, he can do everything. He can play receiver, he can play tight end, he can play running back, he can play quarterback. But at least for 2021, with the 2 players that the Saints have on their roster, I'm really not flattered by Jameis Winston by any means, and I don't know if they're going to retain him. Taysom Hill's the only quarterback under contract heading into 2021, so that's why I think it's going to be him. I don't think I think Winston will get re-signed there, but I don't know if he's going to start.
I was just curious what your thinking was behind it. That's all.
But don't get me wrong. The ideal situation would be for Winston to start and Hill to stay in his role.
Oh, yeah.
But that's who I got. I got Taysom Hill. I think he's at least a 1-year starter for them. Pittsburgh. This is interesting. They just signed Dwayne Haskins, and Big Ben has 1 year left on his deal, but that's going to cost them over $40 million. Kyle, you can go first for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Big Ben. I think that's where he's going to be. I mean, he said as long as the organization wants me, I'm coming back. So I don't see them not wanting him, and I don't see them willing to take a cap hit of that magnitude just to get him off the team and not be the starter. So I think Big Ben's going to be the starter. He's going to ride out his career as a Pittsburgh Steeler, and that'll be it.
Excellent. Yeah, I agree. I think Big Ben is going to be back in Pittsburgh for the final year of his NFL career. I think that's it. After this year, this is last year coming up. I think Big Ben will be the starting quarterback for Pittsburgh in 2021. James.
I am going to go with Sam Darnold.
Love it.
Cheap.
Love it.
Nobody took Dwayne Haskins. Nobody.
Nope.
Not even you, Kyle. I know. Big Ben's still under contract. Comment from Hank. Taysom's an interesting choice, but if I were them, I'm not against taking a flyer on Mr. Crab Legs.
Who's that?
Jameis.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Get it now?
Yeah.
I got it. Now I got it.
It's an interesting analogy by Hank, but all right. So 4 teams left. We have the Falcons, the Broncos, the 49ers, and the Eagles. Saving Philadelphia for last because they're Philly. But let's go to Atlanta. This is very interesting. It's been said that Matt Ryan and Julio Jones will not be dealt this offseason, but they do hold the 4th overall pick in this year's draft. So, Kyle, I'll start with you here. Who do you think starts for Atlanta?
I think it's going to be Matt Ryan. It was just reported that Julio and Matt Ryan are not going to be traded. I believe that 100%, especially the money that they have allocated into Matt Ryan and his contract long term. I just don't see any way in which they take a quarterback with that 4th overall pick. I just don't see it happening. So I'm going to say Matt Ryan for next season.
James.
Riding high on Matt Ryan.
So we got a clean sweep for Matt Ryan, who is under contract until 2025 in Atlanta. Matt Ryan will be 39 years of age through his contract. He's 35 currently. He'll be 36 by the start of next season. So I just wanted to throw that out there. We have 3 more. The Denver Broncos. James, you're up.
Broncos, oof. They got some problems there. I'm going to go with Brissett. Jacoby Brissett. That he goes there because Drew Lock, and honestly what happened with the COVID situation this year, who knows what COVID's going to be like when the start of the football season. It was a complete joke. I think they had a wide receiver start as quarterback. So if you get more of a stable quarterback in there and have Drew Lock as your backup, I think it works out for the Broncos.
All right, that's an interesting one. I definitely respect that. That's definitely a wild card choice, but definitely an interesting one. Kyle.
I think they pick up Mitch Trubisky, familiar face, Vic Fangio being with Chicago for so many years, obviously as a defensive coordinator, but he was there when they were winning with Mitchell Trubisky, and I think that he'll bring him in there essentially with for the Broncos and with that team, and he'll work underneath them. I like Drew Lock, but again, he did not have a really good season. And like James, I think that actually might play a factor. Drew Lock, I think, was the one that started that whole COVID outbreak in the quarterback's locker room.
Yeah.
So I think that could also play a big factor as well in the quarterback decision-making. So I think they go with Mitch Trubisky.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but Drew Lock was one of the league leaders in interceptions this year.
I think he was like number 2 with like 14.
He had 15 interceptions this year. So I actually have the Broncos keeping Drew Lock, and he will start in 2021, in my opinion. He's only played 2 years. I think Drew Lock, this is a similar situation to Daniel Jones, guys, except I would rather have Jones than Lock right now. But I think Drew Lock is there to stay in Denver under Vic Fangio for at least one more year. We will see what happens in 2022, but I think you got to give Drew Lock another shot. San Francisco.
I mean, I'll start it off because I already said it earlier. I think that they wind up trading for Deshaun Watson and a Jimmy Garoppolo Deshaun Watson deal that sends him to the 49ers. I think that's what's going to happen. I think that they suit him as a great team, instantly become Super Bowl contenders, great offensive coordinator, and they're not going to, not surround him with people because we already know he goes there. They have plenty of people for him to work with as opposed to what he had in Houston this year. So I think that's where Deshaun Watson ends up and starts for the 49ers.
Yeah, I definitely like it. I think he'd be an excellent fit under a young mind and Kyle Shanahan. I could definitely see Watson playing there, having a lot of success with a really good defense, by the way. So
I am going with Nick Mullins. I liked what he did when Jimmy G was hurt. He was on my fantasy team. He blessed me a few weeks. That did not go into any of my decision at all. All right, maybe a little bit. But Nick Mullins, I think he gets some more playing time. I think he turns into a decent quarterback for the 49ers.
Wow. Okay. That's definitely an interesting one. Nick Mullins. I have Jimmy G, by the way. I have Jimmy G staying. I think his contract runs through 23 or 2023. He'll be an unrestricted free agent. So he has 2 years left on his deal. Yep. So I think he's there to stay for 2021. Again, like I mentioned earlier, Mike Carousel is not spinning very much. I think a lot of guys are going to stay in place, and I think a lot of the replacements are going to be rookie quarterbacks. I think we've seen two quarterbacks will retire this offseason, Rivers and Breeze. That's two openings right there. So, and Washington as well with that Alex Smith. So that's 3 openings, and New England 4. So there's a lot of teams that are looking for quarterbacks. So, but I don't think San Francisco is one of them. I think they stick with Jimmy G. Last one, Philadelphia. The Philadelphia Eagles, a team that they have chaos right now, who's starting in 2021. Carson Wentz, Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni is their new head coach. The Colts offensive coordinator, Kyle Russo, who's starting for Philly in 2021.
I think it's going to be Jalen Hurts. I said it earlier that I think Carson Wentz gets traded to the Colts, so that would ultimately leave them with Jalen Hurts as their quarterback. And I think he proved last season in the minimal time that he played, he was very impressive, especially in that Arizona game. Even though they lost, he was highly impressive. I think that'll be their guy. And they focused that 6th overall pick on some offensive weapons to help them further build their roster. Because like you alluded to, numerous amounts of time, Tom, their cap is so bad. So they're a team that's going to have to build through the draft.
James.
So when I was doing this, I put down a little note. I'll send to you guys on the separate side of it. Wentz and Hurts duke it out in the offseason and in practice and all that stuff. I say Wentz wins it out somehow, but then by week 3, Hurts isn't. But put me down as Wentz.
I think it's nearly impossible for I think Wentz is making too much money. I think he's making too much money I think the Eagles have to keep him. I think they're in a situation where they have to keep him for at least another year. I love what Jalen Hurts did for them last year, but I think Carson Wentz is their starting quarterback in 2021. I don't think he'll be dealt. But if it does happen, I think Indianapolis will get him. So that's my butt. That was our quarterback carousel, guys. That was really good. That was really good.
A lot of hot takes. A lot of hot takes.
Listen, I'm all about those hot takes, man. I like mixing up the pot with you guys. It's fun.
Nick Mullins, Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah. Now, if all mine comes true, you guys would just have to bow down to me on the show.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely some interesting one. Cam Newton starting in Washington, that's interesting too. I mean, I think that could be a realistic possibility for sure. But it'll be very fun to watch, folks. If you want to check our full list of our quarterback carousel. We're going to post a graphic on social media. You can catch it on Facebook and Instagram. It'll be up on Thursday. Kyle and I will work on that tomorrow. And then you could also watch this clip on YouTube later tonight. We'll post our quarterback carousel segment up on YouTube, and wanted to thank you all for joining us here tonight.